Welcome, friends. Oh my gosh. He's standing up. Get down. Get down. Hey. There. How's that? Welcome, friends, enemies, kind mothers. Another Saturday morning of wake up and think clearly. Am I thinking clearly? What's 43 plus 24? 67. Think. Okay, I'm thinking clearly. I don't know, is that how you test whether one is thinking clearly? No, let me turn it this way. There we go. Wait a minute. Okay, well, that's okay. Now let me stick it on here. Wait a minute. Yes. There we go. Okay, it's okay. Wait a minute. Maybe I should put the controls on the top. No, it doesn't matter. As long as you don't press on any of the buttons. Buttons are on the bottom. Okay. Okay. Wait a minute. It's gonna fall. Oh no. We lost the rubber thing. Okay. How's that? Okay. Let's get on the meet up. Is that opera? Meet up. Let's take a look. Meet.com. And then go to, I gotta sing in. The browser remembered my username and password. I believe. Okay. Now I'm going to anybody signed up on today's event, Saturday, March 6th, 7 a.m. Oh, somebody signed up. Rami. Oh, wow. Rami's going to show up. Now I'm putting Zoom on my desktop. So there's right. This meeting is being recorded. What? Oh, shit.
You are muted. I am not. Now you're not muted. Neither am I.
Darn it. Wait a minute.
Good morning, my dear friend
There's echo.
jmyngpwo.
How come there's echo? Oh.
Because you have 25 different audio devices there.
Oh, I can't. I have to lower the volume on my phone. There we go. How's that?
Excellent. Excellent audio. No feedback.
Let's try this one. Whoa. Let's try this one and let's try this one. See how it sounds with this. Stick it in here and here. Didn't put it on. Oh. How's that? Welcome, Luis Del Pino. How are you this morning?
Well, I'm doing okay, but I've been very sick this past week.
You're still sick.
Yeah.
You managed to do some remote work.
Yes, I work remotely all week. And I've been just, I was tested on Tuesday, deemed negative on Wednesday or Thursday. But it's been, snotty nose, congestion, blowing my nose like 15 times per minute.
Wow.
Feverish, tired, coughing.
Oh.
I mean, like we say in Spanish, a rag, un trapo. Estoy hecho un trapo. But I made it. I'm still alive. I managed not to end up in a pneumonia, which I thought yesterday was like, wow, this is suspiciously looking like pneumonia. But no. So far so good. So far so good. What about you, my friend? How have you been?
I've been good.
All right. Completely recouped from your COVID experience?
Yes. Yes. Where's my lung exerciser? Well, I can use this. This is exercise to blow.
Have you had any follow-up visits with the doctor or something to assess whether you had any
over the phone.
consequences? Yeah. Anyway, you feel all right.
Maybe I should call them. Wow, I can get to 2,000. 1,500. Just lung exercise.
You gotta be lightheaded. You gotta be lightheaded. Hey, Rami.
Get to here.
Hello.
Hello.
Rami.
Let's see how long I get to stay on this morning.
Yay! Every second. Every second is wonderful with Rami.
It won't last long.
So, how are you, Rami? How are you, Stacy? That's the end of Rami.
There's been an interruption in the broadcasting.
Rami's wife, Stacy.
All right, Jairo, let's
set him down.
get down and dirty. It's 7 o'clock, 7:01. What is the subject of the day? The topic.
Oh, there's so many things to think about. Like, what is mind?
Oh,
Why do we have magical thinking? Oh, why do we enjoy to have? Why are we attracted to magical thinking? This is because our mind is attracted to things that are magical.
Because the contrary of magical thinking is rational thinking. And rational thinking takes work, like studying math, or just understanding things. So
we've done so well without math for millions of years.
Really,
it's only been a few thousand years that only a few people learned about math, and it was only philosophers that knew math. The rest of the people, well, they learned some arithmetic, but that's very basic math. That's just
suspect. Arithmetic.
To build a house.
I give you an egg, you give me a piece of wood.
Of your money.
But I use math because that's the one thing that people really dislike: mathematics, physics, chemistry.
The fundamentals of math, or the underlying principle of math, is logic, right?
Logic and rationality go together. I mean, it's just, and that people shun like the bubonic pest, or like COVID. Ooh, stay away from it. So that is the problem. The magical thinking is like, I believe this because it's easy to believe. Yeah, it makes sense to me. It's easy to believe. I'll believe that. That is opposed to rational, investigative analysis of the facts. And another thing that people just hate is uncertainty. They hate to say, I just don't know. I'm not sure. It's like, what's after death? I just don't know. Well, I'm going to have to make up something. And there goes the magical thinking. After death.
Or come up with a meaning. Come up with a meaning for it that is congruent with the rest of our worldview.
Yeah. See, there's a difference. There's a difference between.
Right?
It's a good point there. There's a difference between data processing, and then meaning. Very good point.
What is data?
Data would be your 5 senses that become your 6th sense, which is the mind. There you go. So the 6th sense is like a CPU of all the 5 senses: the cameras, the mics, the temperature sensors, the taste sensors, the smell sensors, etc., etc. So all that's data. It goes into a CPU, central processing unit, which is the mind. So that's data collection and processing. And out of that processing, well, you have a logistician system that kind of operates and does things. But then that's where it gets a little subtle or abstract. There's the interpretation of the whole system that is put together by the mind. So the data is analyzed and processed, and then it is sensitized, in a sense, not in a sense of feeling, but sensitize in the sense of, does it make sense to me? What the hell is going on? You know, and so that is the thing of the human mind. It wants to make sense of what it is of itself. Because think about it. The mind is the CPU that is observing and analyzing, explaining, describing, building, destroying, doing, etc., etc. But then there's the other step where the mind is trying to make sense of sensing. See? That's like meta thinking or meta sensing. Meta processing, because the mind is a CPU, central processing unit.
And
that's where
in all animals, doesn't it? Even insects.
I don't know.
Not maybe not so well with amoebas, but worms. It might have a few simple sensors, but a bug has eyes. Man, at least that.
Yeah.
We suspect
Antennae, they smell, they
sense of
see,
smell.
they have 5 senses like we do. There's no doubt
So
about it.
they whatever senses they have come up with are designed for their survival, right? For procuring food and for finding their mate and reproducing to continue the species, right?
Yeah, that's the
what is it called? Natural selection? What? Evolutionarily, they're designed in favor of that over if it's accurate description of reality. Their senses will only show them what and then make sense of it in a way that will get the job done, and sometimes that causes mistakes, but on the average it's designed to get them to survive, like when you go after a bug, it senses motion, so it takes off. So it whatever sense of motion of senses it uses, it's just going to have the sense that they don't have to interpret that as a hand or whatever. They just have to interpret that as something moving, some in their video system. So some motion in the screen, and that makes them want to take off. So it can be that simple.
Right. And we have the same thing in us at the very basic way. Somebody kind of swats their hand towards you. You're gonna avoid the hand. There's no doubt about it.
And
it's wired.
Built in our sense of beauty, well, especially for males. That sense of beauty is that the female should have these proportions and this and that, and the eyes should be healthy, and the female should be young, and that's why males prefer younger.
That's not a sense of beauty.
Females.
That's not a sense of beauty.
I mean, for the species,
right.
You reproducing.
It's a selective.
It tends to the subconsciously or unconsciously. Our sense perception is designed so that we're attracted
Yeah.
And that's why anime cartoons, they put the eyes big because it's more attractive, and you see the iris and all that. That's what this. I was listening to an audio book on that and that influences the way the female puts makeup on, because they're trying to emphasize things that
Bigger
show that
eyes.
they're young, and the eyes are sparkling, and there's a little bit of blue because blue in the white area is supposed to show a sign that it's healthy, so they put blue all around the eye and things like that. So all these mechanisms that are that are evolved through evolution, through our DNA, it influences our behavior because, and it fools us through makeup, because the female have figured out what keeps them coming, so they put on the makeup to bring, you know. So it's all things that we're not aware of. So that book is trying to show us that what we perceive is not the real objective reality, but it does go through our eye camera, but there's like 160 million receptors, but we're only going to zoom in on certain things, and we forget about everything around it. Like whatever we're looking at, like you're looking at me, you're only seeing me, and everything else is kind of blurred out and forgotten. So we're always doing that automatically. So we're our our senses and even our interpretation is influenced by what we're focusing on, but it's so automatic that we're not realizing we're doing it so automatic according to our something. I don't know if it's if it I don't know if it's processed. I don't think it's processed in the eye itself. It gets sent to the back of the brain, right? And it's processed there, right?
Everything is an integral, holistic process. So it's a
Because
complicated.
the sense perception, sense eye consciousness has evolved so much that the area that handles it in the brain has gotten bigger. And then when somebody becomes blind, like a Stevie Wonder, then it uses that area that's not being used so much, and that's why his sense of music is so high. I suppose, I'm guessing.
So that's, there it is. But what I find extremely interesting, because we're very similar to all other animals in the five senses, in the way we perceive things. And animals also have that big collars, and the males are very colorful, and big feathers and everything to attract females. So it applies to all the animal world, size and color and shapes and stuff. But what interests me, above all, is this part of our animal brain, because we are animals, which is the more complex, the more subtle, the more abstract side of our consciousness, which we don't know if the animals have it or not, but they don't seem to be as complex in their behavior, in their even when we see complex things in animals, we see automated complex things. Yeah. A mitochondria is a complex world. It's a complex world. If you look at our mitochondria inside our cells, hell, it's like a power plant in and of itself, a microscopic power plant with moving parts and things that open and close, little things that turn, and they move electrons around. It's like, what the hell? What is this? I mean, it's a complicated world, but it's automatic. It's just like a little machine. And so animals, when we look at animals, they are like wonderful little machines. And so are we. And so are we. What's a little special about us is our unpredictability. You know, we have behavioral, random patterns, and we are very complex, very complicated, much more so than ants in all their complication, or the ecology in all its complication. But we individually are extremely random, unpredictable, complicated, abstract. You know, it's just that's the part that really intrigues me about being human. And like I said, we are animals. We're not any different from any animal. In that sense, I declare that we don't have a special soul, a special status. You know, we're not supernatural or anything. But one thing is for sure is the complexity of our CPU is something to behold. The shit we come up with, the ideas we come up with, even in our magical thinking or in our scientific investigation of what is, i.e., reality, is just phenomenal. And that's what just it's just it awes me. I'm in awe.
Yeah. Yes. And I read somewhere that the brain is the servant of the mind. We think that our brain, being the CPU and things, that it was designed that our body is, that we're in control of our body. Yeah, I guess so, to move around. But the body actually uses the brain to control itself. So maybe our desire, yeah, like there's the gut. It's like the second brain. It controls our need, our, it tells us that we're hungry, and so we act on it. So we're accustomed to thinking, yes, I'm in control of my body, or the body is so influential on the brain that we have to think the other way, that the body is the servant and the brain is just its slave. It's just a tool for the body. So we're more of a body than a brain. Actually, a brain is just an organ of the body. That was an interesting perspective of our system.
I don't think like that.
We're so into the brain as that's who we are, that we forget that we're a mind body system. We forget our body, and,
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah,
spotlight and intellect,
yeah.
and that if we suppress or anything that is emotion, oh, that's not rational, so we have to put it aside and just let's think logical. But actually our emotions, or they start off as feelings, and yeah, they're going to the brain also, but it's not just, well, like if you delimit the brain as something separate from the body, then where do you separate it? That, okay, is the eyes part of the brain? I guess it's a sense input, so that's the, maybe you could say that the eyes is part of the brain, or you could say that the eyes is just a sense input, like a camera on a computer system. So it's not really, if we think of the brain as just the CPU, then the eyes is not part of it. So the CPU is it's just that brain part. So it doesn't have any sense inputs, right? So unless there's a center in the brain, maybe it's the pineal gland or something that does some sort of extrasensory perception with an antenna, like a mobile phone. Maybe that might be where ESP comes through, and we don't even know because we have thoughts pop up and we don't know where did that thought come from. Did I create that thought, or is that coming from somewhere out there through an antenna? Where is Rami?
When is Rami when we need him? So I don't think that the brain is the master, or the mind is the master, or the eye is the master, or anything. As a matter of fact, I think everything is interdependent. Paticca samuppada. Everything is interlinked and interdependent. So there is no owner, there is no slave, there is no master. Everything works together. That's a good thing to learn in order to attain ataraxia, because it puts things in a very flowing, natural, dynamic perspective. No owners, no kings, no slaves, no leader, no follower. Everything is one.
Yes. So, so our real I is not, or is not bounded by our brain. It's a should be thought of as integral system that includes our body. So our I is all over, right? And because it's a mind-body integrated system, or it should be,
right.
Or otherwise we could right. become over.
And we always forget.
Unhealthy.
We always forget. There's body, mind, and there's the environment.
Yes.
The environment, which is reality, which is the outside and the inside. Without that, there's nothing. So again, we have to see distinctions, aspectual distinctions, formal distinctions, but we need to feel the universal oneness, the essential oneness of it all. And that way you don't see the eye as one thing and the brain as another. You just see aspects of the same essence, the same being, which is reality as a whole, with capital R.
Oh. Yes, I've been listening to the case against reality. Well,
good luck with that.
Case, reality might be different from what you're thinking, but
yeah, sure.
But the author thinks of reality as objective truth, like when we build a camera that records video, it's objectively recording everything with more pixels, then you see more of reality, and we imagine that our eye sense is doing the same thing. Well, yes, in a way, maybe if we could disconnect it from the brain and connect it, interface it to a computer, and convert the rods and cones and into digital pixels, then maybe we would get a similar thing, maybe fish-eyed looking and stereoscopic and stuff like that. But this author, Donald Huffman, is saying that for some time, like he was studying with scientists that were outstanding. Maybe 30, 40 years ago, he was studying with these scientists that were saying that our eye evolved to show us objective reality as it is. So, and that favored the idea of trying to come up with an artificial eye for a computer and things like that. But he says that evolution didn't match exactly that. So we well, maybe he's thinking of at the end, perception or interpretation hides the truth from our eyes. So maybe he's gone into what we interpret automatically out there, and we think what we see is that's reality. But he's showing the mistakes that are inherent in the system, in our sensory perception and or interpretation. Maybe that might be a better word. I don't know. What do you mean by, or what do you think perception is versus interpretation? Or
see that
in perception?
Again, we're trying to make a dichotomy between perception and interpretation and meaning. And there is no dichotomy. There is no objective perception without subjective perception. And there's no subjective perception without objective perception. Because you try to put a mind outside a brain, outside a body, outside of all the five senses, outside of reality. That mind has nothing to see, nothing to perceive, hence nothing to process, nothing to make sense of. You see? So although, a lot of people imagine a mind outside, beside, separated from the whole of reality. And there is no reality without mind, and there's no mind without reality. Just like there is no seeing without eye, and there's no eye without seeing. Everything is interrelated. Paticca samuppada. Codependent arising. So when we start to break things apart in the materialistic way, we lose the picture because we make distinctions and separations where they do not exist. We confuse making a formal distinction, an aspectual distinction, with making an essential dichotomy or cut. And that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. So everything works together. You take a part out, nothing works. The whole process falls apart. There's a short video, excuse me. There's a short video in the movie Amadeus.
A clip from the
Excuse
movie?
me. Yeah, a clip from a movie. And
let's see if I can find it.
Yeah, go ahead and get on YouTube.
Share it.
Get on YouTube, and in there you type Salieri, which one of the characters, the nemesis of Salieri describing the music of Mozart.
Salieri Amadeus monologue, maybe.
No.
Salieri describes Mozart's music.
Go ahead and play that.
Let's see if that's it.
Excuse me, I'm my nose is a mess. Go ahead and listen to what he says. And this will describe a little bit what I'm talking about. Oh, no. This is a wrong one. This is a wrong one. No, that's another good one, but no. Hold on a second. Sorry about that.
That was Mozart.
I mean, it was, these are originals. These are originals.
Originals?
Yeah. So
let's try that.
Salieri starts looking at the originals of some sketches of music from Mozart, and he is flabbergasted because there are no corrections in them. And, you know, he just writes music perfectly finished from the get-go.
Is that it?
Yes.
Do you see it?
Yeah. Go ahead and play it and listen to what he says. Listen to what he says about taking a note or changing anything to it, etc., etc. And then apply that to the thinking that you can have a mind without a brain, or you can have a brain without an eye, you can have an eye without a brain, and, you know. Now, and you can, you know, I've listened to that so many times, because to me it evokes I can say the same thing he was saying about Mozart's music, about the human consciousness. You take away the seeing, you take away the tasting, you take away the hearing, you take away the brain, you take away the environment, you take away reality. The whole thing falls apart. The whole experience ceases to be what it is. So in my description of reality, which is a description of myself, because I see the unity of all, I feel exactly like Salieri, with that feeling of coherence and holism, where everything is in the proper place. Everything is in its place. In the symphony of life, everything is in its proper place. Does that make any sense, what I'm saying?
Yes. Are you saying that the brain needs senses to have something to process?
Yes. Yes.
Well, the brain evolved to process the senses, right?
It is brain because there are senses and because there are things to be processed. They have studied that in kids that were born in, in conditions of war and in poverty, deprivation, without their mothers, and their brains did not grow properly. They had grown properly, but they didn't function properly. So the brain needs the sensors. The sensors need the objects, the sensations, and the objects need the universe, and the universe needs what? The mind to see itself. You see what I mean? When I told you the other day that the mind is the organismic dynamic process through which the whole of reality experiences itself, that closes the loop. Everything in there in the symphony is necessary for the symphony to be what it is. You change one note, you change one sentence, and the whole structure falls apart. That reality is not the same reality anymore.
Are you saying that the mind is an organic process that allows reality to see itself, is
Yes.
to perceive,
To experience itself, to
experience.
live itself.
But what is reality? Is is
Reality
that
is
is reality a sentient being because it's being allowed to see itself?
but isn't the sentienting everywhere? I just told you that without the mind, without the brain, without the body, without the senses, without the objects, without the sensations, without the data collection, there is no reality. So where's the sentient? In the eye, in the brain, in the gut, in the object, in the communication between the object and the eye, and so on.
So Are you saying that reality is that which gets perceived and processed and made meaning of? Or is there a reality that is not perceived?
Let me throw something this at you. The observed, i.e., reality, the observer, i.e., the body, the brain, the eyes, the this, that, and boom, 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 and the very act of observing are the same one thing.
Mm.
Three aspects of the same monad.
Mm.
You see what I mean? There is no essential distinction or separation between reality, its aspect, and its observation. The communication between the yin and the yang.
Or it could be that in the moment of there being an observer, an observed, and an
And
observing,
observing,
their their uh their oneness.
well,
There's
just
a
take one. Okay, let's apply
and
Salieri's.
that oneness is mind.
Let's apply Salieri's words. Take one away. What happens? The whole symphony falls apart. Right? The
Take
structure falls
one
apart.
note away, you mean?
Or okay, of the three, the observed reality, the observer, the aspect, the aspectual side of reality, the observer, and the observer. Take one away. Take one away. See what happens. What happens if you take, let's say, you take the observer? What happens then? Can you speak of reality? No. Does reality know it is? No, it doesn't have anyone to observe it. So the whole thing disappears. You take the observing, and the same thing happens. And you take reality away, well, there's no observer and no observing either. Do you see that the three of them are intimately fused and tied together, that one doesn't exist without the other, per se?
So if I look at the sun and then I close my eyes, then I don't see the sun. I can open them and I see them. So every time I close my eyes and don't see the sun, then the sun is not really there. And then
It is
now it's
there.
there.
It is there.
Or we can assume it's there. We can infer
So,
it's there.
so
But what
here,
if it's not there for reality? So
that's the. So as you can see, just like we talk about two truths, two realities, the conventional and the non-conventional. This shows you that if there was no human consciousness, if there was no consciousness, i.e., there's no observing, the sun might very well be there, but nobody knows it anyway. So can you really talk about a sun being there if no one knows it? Does a tree fall in the forest, because nobody hears it? Does it fall? Does it make any sound? Well, obviously, if a tree falls into the forest, it will make a sound, but nobody heard it. So it's not applicable. It's not applicable. Without an observer, it doesn't make any, you cannot even think about that. See? The fact that you're talking about a tree falling in a forest, you're already making it happen in the world of ideas, in the transcendent reality, in the subjective reality. Again, if a tree falls in the tree and nobody knows about it, since there is no knowledge about it, you might as well say that it didn't happen, although it did happen. but the whole symphony of being and sense falls apart. You have to have the three things.
You have to have the three things in order for what to happen.
For it to happen.
And it is what? It is
The
the
whole
mind?
No, the whole of reality. There is no mind without reality. There's no reality without mind.
So they're one and the same. So you have to have the three to have mind.
That's right. That's why when they say that the mind can leave the body and go somewhere else, it is so infantile to think about that.
Yeah.
It's so childish.
To do what?
To think about a mind leaving a body and going to another body. It's just because in between bodies, the mind doesn't have a body to grab onto. And if it doesn't have a body, it cannot have a mind. That's magical thinking, right?
Or if the mind leaves the body, there would have to be a body for that mind to leave the body. So, so there would have to be a mind-like body, a formless body for the mind. But to leave it, it's.
What is the formless body? What is the formless body, Jairo?
Is it leaving
the whole of reality?
Is it leaving is the mind leaving the body, through physical space? Because, or is it leaving the body through a space that is non-physical, a formless space?
It is not leaving. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Okay. It is not leaving the physical location, but could it be leaving a mental space, a mental location?
The formless
assuming
body.
that there's a overlay.
Listen.
There's physical space and there's mental space. So the mind could be leaving the mental location of the body.
You're missing the point. You're missing the point. The point is that from here to there, you're in the same place. You're in the same reality. That is the formless body that you're talking about. The communication between this point and that point is reality. So that means that the mind is just like a pixel into a moving picture. It's still in the same file. The same.
Does the mind have a location, physical location, or is the mind everywhere, or is the mind non-local, or no, or is the mind independent of location? Because it's all formless, so therefore it's independent of physical location.
It is the mind of reality, which is formless.
So
it's not an individual thing. It's just another process that is happening somewhere in the middle of the infinite and the eternal reality, which is formless, which is bodiless.
If I close my eyes and imagine that I'm in the kitchen or in the bathroom or in a dream, I visualize those locations. is my mind in those locations,
It is not your mind. It is the mind of reality.
and did the mind leave the body, or the mind is never in the body?
The mind is everywhere and nowhere at the same time.
So the mind has no location, because the mind, whatever happens in it, is formless. So the mind can create locations, places. Through our dreams, we can create scenery, like Star Trek when they there's a scene and you go in there, like a virtual reality.
You know, they talk about this in quantum mechanics. They said, how come all the photons are exactly identical? What if every photon is the same photon? That's everywhere.
So they can't find a fingerprint for each photon. They look at each photon, each atomic particle, and they're the same.
There you have it.
However they look.
There you have
Maybe
it.
they can't even see it.
There
Maybe
you have
they
it.
can. Well, for the electron, they just see it.
It's the same idea.
Probability.
All the photons are the same photon. And who is that photon? The whole of reality. All the bodies are the same bodies. They don't look the same, but they're made of the same thing anyway. Your body and my body are made of the same photon. So all the differences in aspect still all go back to the essential identity. The universal, formless, eternal, and infinite identity. There you have it. So when we think that my mind is going to another body, we are magical. We have magical thinking. We're not being consistent with reality.
But what if reality is not there? It's
everywhere.
It's we know reality through our senses, and we infer things.
It's because we misunderstand. The brain, the mind misunderstands. It's just a lack. It's a lack of understanding and a mistaken identity.
Oh, we have a new guest, our special guest. He'll help us solve this equation. Mike Taylor, the mathematician.
Wow.
Wow.
Good morning, Mike.
Mike Taylor, the mathematician. You've come to save the day.
Hello.
Hello there.
Hey,
welcome, Mike,
how you doing,
the
Mike?
mathematician. How are you?
Well, now I'm awake.
Well,
whereas before you were asleep.
Wow.
Welcome.
You look wonderful. Yeah. What was you like before you were awake?
I was not awake.
And were you lying in bed?
Well, let's see now. I think my body may have been lying in bed. I have a theory.
Oh, that's interesting. So you distinguish.
Let's hear about it.
Distinguish between body and your eye. That's very interesting.
At least I think it was my body. Maybe it was a rental job.
Oh,
Is that an elaboration on reincarnation?
Boy, I wish he had been here when we started our chat today. Uh, well, Jairo, what would you say? What have we been talking about? What's the gist of our conversation so far?
what is mind? And I've been listening to a book by Donald Huffman. It's and also reading it. It's called The Case Against Reality. But I think reality for him might be different from the reality that Luis Del Pino talks about. I think he sees reality as objective reality that we would see if our eye was a perfect video camera, or whatever sense is perfect, with infinite resolution, and our brain would not try to interpret it, but just see it as it is. Maybe that's what a Buddha sees when he realizes emptiness. He sees things objectively as they are and doesn't try to interpret it. But then by not doing that, he wouldn't see anything, because he's seeing a cup, but he's not interpreting it that it's a cup. He's just seeing light coming in. So what's the use of that? So he argues that we were designed not just to simply see things objectively true as they are, even though our eye sense and our eye camera is so amazing, that we're actually doing a lot of filtering and a lot of perceiving and interpreting, and we do that for evolutionary purposes to promote the race. So what we see, we're attracted to. So when we look at females, we're attracted to their youth and beauty and shape, so that we make sure we mate with a young, a beautiful woman that has all the ingredients to reproduce and continue our DNA. So our brain is designed to take care of all that. So it ignores what reality is really like. It's designed primarily to automatically get us to reproduce. And that happens with the insects, like beetles. That there's a case in Australia that a company designed a drink bottle, maybe it's a beer bottle, and it designed the figure of it, the colors and the bumps, and looked just like a beetle of the female persuasion for that beetle bug. And so that bug would be attracted to those beer bottles, and would just stick to it and start mating on it. So that company had to change the design of their bottle because of that, because the male bugs were trying to mate the bottle, and they were dying. So that bug could have become extinct. So that bug is, through evolution, was designed to sense a certain thing. So even our brain is designed to perceive not objective reality, but a fake reality that makes us assures us that we're attracted to the right mate, and do things the way that it'll promote the species. So we're not looking at objective reality. So there's a defect in our reality, in our interpretation of reality. Maybe that's why the Buddhists and Hindu sages say that we're seeing Maya, or an illusion, or we should try to see the world as what we're seeing as an illusion, because it's distorted by our physical designs. We're not seeing reality objectively. We're seeing it so that we survive. What do you think? That's by Donald Huffman.
When you were talking, I got this marvelous picture in my head of a biologist discovering somewhere that there was a species of beetle that was now producing eggs in the shape of beer bottles.
Wow, that's amazing. That's the mind of Mike
The
Taylor.
most amazing thing would be if they're full of beer, and it's
Is
a
that-
good quality beer.
Is that is
Don't try to drink any of the beetle bottles.
is Mike Taylor's image an interpretation and redesign and visualization of what I said? Is that magical thinking? What is magical thinking? Superstition, right?
Well, that takes us down another magical rabbit hole. But let me toss out the following comment. It goes back to a question I was asked many, many years ago. Is mathematics real? I was asked this question by Swami, and I expect he had in mind the various strange objects that mathematicians like to play with, such as complex numbers, Hilbert space, tori, n-dimensional spaces, etc. And he asked me the question. I'd never bothered to think about it before. And my immediate response was yes. And he asked me, why do you say that? What is your justification? And I told him my justification was I was a mathematician and I would spend all day working on mathematics, crawling around in the space of abstractions, becoming intimately acquainted with them, gaining intuition as to how they worked. So in some sense, I had a firsthand acquaintance with them. Secondly, I worked with other mathematicians, and they were engaged in very similar enterprises, and we were crawling around through this hyper landscape, and we were seeing the same sorts of things. So I said, it seemed to me that those were two good reasons for saying mathematics most definitely is real. But of course, when I thought about it for a moment, I realized that what I was doing was I was pulling out the word real, pulling out the concept reality, and I was, in effect, deciding what I wanted it to mean in the particular setting of mathematics. And this did not necessarily determine what words such as real and reality meant necessarily anywhere else.
But when you look at the sun and then you close your eyes, it's gone, and then you open it, it's back. That's one model or one way of interpreting reality, that that it appears and exists only when we see them, and then when we stop seeing them, they don't exist anymore. So in the same way, couldn't your mathematics not exist when you're not looking at it, and then when you look at it, oh, there's that toroid, and then you close your mathematical eye, your mental mathematical eye, and you close or you ignore it, then it's not there? Or is it there when you don't look at it mathematically?
Well, I'm used to saying this chair is still there even when I'm not in the room looking at it. So why can't I say the same about my mathematics?
Yeah. I propose the following, and this is exactly what we were talking about, Jairo and I. I propose looking at the concept of reality and real from a very holistic, integral, all-encompassing perspective. And I always say that in reality, reality exhibits two fundamental aspects. One being the phenomenal aspect, i.e. anything that can be seen, touched, tasted, measured, thought about. And that includes material and mental considerations, which, the mental ones are not material in a sense, but they are still phenomenal because the mind can see itself. But for whatever that is, it's an observation, it's a thought, it's a perception, it's a consideration, it's an analysis, it's an abstraction, but it's still abstractable, hence phenomenal. So phenomenal aspect and non-phenomenal aspect. The non-phenomenal aspect, there's not much you can say about it because you can't see it, you can't feel it, you can't measure it, you can only, if anything, you can think about it. The absolute zero Kelvin, nothing is going on. Reality is both things at the same time, at no end, with no beginning, everywhere, and if it's everywhere, it's nowhere. So when I talk about reality, I'm talking about it, reality as a whole, I, looking at it, but I'm still reality, because I'm not outside of reality, there's only one reality, and math. Math would be the looking, the measuring, the thinking, the abstracting, the probing, finding relationships, finding processes, finding, sense, in a sense. You take one of either three away, reality itself, with its both its phenomenal and non-phenomenal aspect. You take the I, the observer, the consciousness, the mind, away, and you take the math away, or you can take one or two or three out and nothing is left. Of course, wait a minute, because if reality includes the non-phenomenal side, nothing is left, still leaves reality there. So reality is in the spectrum between 0 and 1, or infinite, because that one can be as big and complex as you can make it. So reality is the spectrum, the dynamic interplay with no beginning and no end, and with no spatial fixation. That dynamic interplay of being between 0 and infinity. That brings us to the torus. The torus, in a sense, is a good representation of reality just coming in and out of itself without never getting anywhere but itself. So my proposal of the description of reality includes math, which is real, but it's real in the sense of data processing, understanding of reality regarding itself. Because again, all three things are interrelated and they look different, but they are the same one thing, which is reality. Because there is no I outside of reality, there is no math outside of reality. So all three things relate to, report to, and are talking about the same one thing, which is reality itself. that's my proposal. So is math real? Yes, mathematics is real, just as real as reality, but it's just an aspect of the whole enchilada. In a sense, I would say that mathematics is the communicative, descriptive tool through which reality is able to experience itself. Now, you can say that, hey, wait a minute. There are a lot of people that would say, I don't understand mathematics. Okay. Mathematics could be said as one language of this communication process of reality with itself. We can say that reality communicates itself through the mind of a mosquito, or through the processes in our guts, or our brain, our feelings, our emotions, our senses, our interpretations, our thoughts, our intuitions, etc., etc., our dreams, our hopes, our fears. Well, mathematics is a specific language within this communication, this perception and understanding, this sensing, which is very specific. And I say it's very specific because mathematics, in its vocabulary and semantics, does not talk about feelings, emotions, and how sad I feel, or if I like this, or if this, etc., etc. It's just a very specific language, very descriptive, very. It's a beautiful language. Obviously, it's a beautiful language of description of what is and how it is. But it's not a complete language. Again, because I see everything holistically, if I use mathematics, psychology, philosophy, biology, literature, music, and I put it all together. As a matter of fact, mathematics was part of music. Music and mathematics were taught together at some point. It was part of, understanding reality properly. And they saw that there was a lot of confluence between mathematics and the measurement of the rhythm, and the consonants and the dissonances and all that kind of stuff. There was a close relationship between mathematics and music in the description of it, which is the whole of reality. That's what I propose. So is mathematics real? Hell yeah. Just as real as reality, but it is just another aspect. It's part of the phenomenal side of reality, which is not the complete picture. Because if we don't see the non-phenomenal side, we miss part of the language. The experience of reality with regards to itself is not complete. Something is missing. There's a filter that doesn't allow reality to experience itself fully.
Now, you say that mathematics is a phenomenal part of reality. Give me an example of a non-phenomenal part.
It's difficult to talk about the non-phenomenal part of reality. It's been called nibbana, extinguishing or putting away the fire. It's called moksha. It's called the collective unconscious. So the non-phenomenal part of reality, also called noumenal part of reality, the object itself, beyond description, inexpressible. It's just it, they call it. So mathematics has a great intuition into the non-phenomenal part of reality. When we talk about zero, we're talking about nothing. And when we talk about nothing, we feel that there's nothing there. But zero is the non-phenomenal part of reality. And without non-phenomenal part, every one would be a one anyway. There would be no change. In order for one to become two, something has to stop being one in order to become two. And when one stops being one, it becomes a zero. And then it becomes a two, or the addition of the two things. So it's a very good question. And my answer to that is zero. The idea of void or no thing is the non-phenomenal side of reality. But it is just as much part of 1 and 0 or 2 or 5 or 15 or whatever equation or whatever consideration or mental abstraction, however complex it might be. The 0 is in the middle of everything. Because if there was no 0, there would be no change. And if there was no change, there would be no mind, there would be no dynamic interplay, there would be no thinking, there would be nothing. And yet, if there was nothing, that would be reality anyway. Did I answer your question at all?
Did you get that, Mike?
You're saying, I think, that the concept of nothingness is an example of the non-phenomenal.
Yes, there is a sutra that starts as the Heart Sutra, and it says, form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. What that is telling me is that reality as a whole includes implicits, being and non-being at the same time. And that there is no essential demarcation, separation, dichotomy, or completely essential otherness when we talk about being and non-being. That's why I always say that 0 is 1, 1 is 0, because it's the same as saying that form is emptiness, emptiness is form. The mind has a hard time, the conventional mind, has a hard time putting together being and non-being. It doesn't understand the yin-yang. It looks like the yin-yang, it looks like, oh, this is black and this is white, whatever. But what the yin-yang represents is precisely the non-phenomenal side of reality, the emptiness, which is immanent with being, with the phenomenal side. The phenomenal side, if there was no emptiness, would look like a picture, not like a movie, because there would be no change.
What I am suspecting is that you would say of most concepts that they are examples of non-phenomenal reality.
They are the aspectual side of the non-phenomenal aspect, the non-phenomenal side of reality. Being and non-being are the same process. Aspect and no aspect is the same thing. Empty and full is the aspects of the same one thing, which I call reality as a whole. So I'm always very careful to say real is also what I cannot see and touch or measure. 0 is real. Although I don't see anything, I can say 0 is, just like 1 is. It's just two different aspects of the same reality. And not only that, I say 0 is absolutely necessary, because if there was no 0, 1 would be stuck being a 1. And there would be no change. There would be no dynamic interplay. There would be no evolution. There would be no change. There would be no counting, etc., etc. So the very combination, dynamic interplay of 0 and 1, being and non-being, something, nothing, is reality itself. Without that, as a matter of fact, if reality did not have both aspects, both phenomenal and non-phenomenal aspects, it would be impossible for reality to know that it is. There would be no counting, there would be no mind, there would be no nothing. And still, reality would be. If reality was a big zero, no change, no vibration, no energy, a zero Kelvin, I would still call that reality. Of course, I wouldn't be here to tell you about it. I wouldn't be anywhere, because you and I and Jairo and the phone would be that zero. So, complete potential, but no actualization. And if you have read the book by David Bohm was was a physicist in the 70s and 80s, and he wrote a book about the implicit and explicit order. He describes perfectly in scientific ways from his physicist mind the holographic nature of reality. In every one, you see the zero. In a two, you see a zero, a one, and a one. In a three, you see 0, 2, 1, or 1, 0, 1, 2, or something like that. I don't know exactly how it works in the binary code. But if you look at the yin yang, black and white, as a 0 and a 1, and you look at any thing in the universe, any object, you could see a whole bunch of 0 1s in there, right? A binary code, a binary, so you could describe everything in terms of 0 1. And I think it's a poetic and beautiful way to describe reality. A phenomenal, incredible, eternal, and infinite number. 0 1 0 0 0 0 0 1 1 1 0 0 0 1 1 1.
I must admit as to being quite dubious that one could ultimately describe everything that's going on, all of reality, by zeros and ones.
Well, it's a very basic language, indeed. It's very difficult to see. Yeah, it's very difficult to see color in a string of 0 and 1s, and yet you can. The theory of everything. The theory of everything, when you look at it into the very most basic essence of it, is 0 and 1. Then mathematics, or the mind, or consciousness, feels colors and symphonies and vibrations and tastes and odors and feelings and emotions. But all of them, you can reduce them to 0 and 1. Form, emptiness, emptiness, form. Everything is a vibration of 0. And the vibration of 0 we call string, whatever,
You remind me of hearing people say, ultimately, everything is physics.
Yes. Everything that I say, talk, or believe, or is physical. It's scientific. But I use the consilient way of looking at things, because although I am aware that everything is 0 1, a combination of zeros and ones, even a black hole has a lot of data on the surface of it. The surface of it is 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1. But everything is physics. Everything is thought. Everything is feelings. Everything is. So I am very holistic, integral, and comprehensive into the description of being. Yes, everything is physics. Even 0 is physics?
Well, I am certainly not used to thinking of zero as being physics.
Yes.
And I have to tell you that I do not subscribe to the belief that everything is physics. I think that physics leaves something out, though what it leaves out, I am far from sure.
What it leaves out is when you go into infinity, the depth, the complexity, the subtlety and abstraction of knowledge becomes infinite. And we feel like it goes outside of somewhere, but there's no outside of reality. What physics leaves out is another perspective, but not another data. A different way of looking at things. That's what it leaves out. Physics leaves out the other perspective because physics has a problem with zero, because physics can't do anything with zero. It can't look at it, it can't measure it. It's a concept that is outside of physics. Physics is limited, like I said before about mathematics. It is a beautiful, deep, and rich language, but it is not complete. So physics leaves out nothing other than a different language, a different perspective, a different understanding. The transcendent, yet not conventional side of the understanding of reality regarding itself. It's just, it doesn't leave anything out. There's nothing outside of reality. What is outside is another perspective, another way of understanding zero and ones. You see? That's why I don't utilize only mathematics and physics in my description of reality. It has to have other nuances. Just like music. You can look at music as, dots on a piece of paper, blah, 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 blah. But you put them together and you have something outside of just dots going up and down. There is, excuse me, I've had a bad cold this past week. Well, as you can see, when you can start putting together numbers like mathematics or physics theories, a whole bunch of things come out of the numbers, and the geometry, and the planes, and the different multiverses, and everything. It becomes so abstract, nonsensical, ineffable, indescribable that it is clear that you need a super perspective, a meta perspective, which is bigger than physics, mathematics, and biology, and nutrition, and news, and geology, and history, and geography, and sociology, and politics, and psychiatry, etc., etc. You put all those languages together, which is very difficult, because you almost have to be a PhD in every science. And then it emerges from that super language, super communication structure, the complete understanding of reality with regards to itself. And when I say complete, I'm showing a function that tends towards infinity, because reality is infinite and eternal. So it cannot. The function cannot touch itself. The asymptote. That's why we always feel there's something left out, because no matter how much you know, understand, and describe, it's an infinity of knowledge that comes out, an infinity of understanding, an infinity of being, properly understood, which goes beyond any language, beyond any thought. There's a sutra that explains this beautifully, which is the sutra on emptiness, go figure, where a mind going through the stages of ataraxia and knowledge, and you can add, physics, mathematics, quantum, classical, the whole knowledge of the whole history of the whole mind of the humanity. It goes through those stages of elevation or abstraction or subtlety, and it gets to the infinity of space. It looks at space, it sees emptiness in it and infinity in it and eternity in it. So it sees through everything, sees nothing, and then it sees itself and it goes, this very process, this very language is also empty. It's also a 0 and a 1, and it detaches itself. It ceases to see itself as an observer, and then it sees itself as the whole of reality. That mind, that supermind, becomes it, which is undescribable, ineffable, infinite, eternal. It is beyond any expression. You see what I mean?
I've just heard you describing what is beyond expression.
That's right. So you can talk about it, but you cannot talk it. That's why the theory of everything is still talking about everything, but it doesn't talk everything. It just describes it in 1,000 billion infinite ways. That's the beauty of it. That's why I propose that this holistic, super perspective, scientific, non-magical description of reality is what gives the mind its ultimate way out of itself, because we are our own trap. The human mind, self-conscious mind is its own trap, but it's also the only thing that reality can use to see itself. Because reality, being everything and nothing at the same time in eternity, cannot see itself if it is not through consciousness.
What do you think, Michael? Mike Taylor? What do you think, Mike Taylor? Have you?
Are you fading out there, Jairo?
Can you hear me?
Vaguely.
Oh, wow.
You're not quite real.
Oh.
But maybe it's because you're insufficiently holistic.
Can you hear me now?
You are a mathematician. You are a man of deep thought. You're a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
What I just said, does it strike as crazy? Just BS? Is it something that resonates at all with the mind of a mathematician? Is it trivial? Is it just doesn't make any sense? It doesn't get us anywhere. What is your reaction to such a non-conventional way of looking at reality? Because this is non-conventional, I would think.
I don't think it's non-conventional. I think there are a lot of people out there.
Oh yeah.
Who hold similar.
I'm a good parrot. I'm repeating, although I now I make it my own, but I'm repeating stuff that is being talked about for millennia. Yes, in small circles.
Mm-hmm. Occasionally, some of the things that you say will strike a little spark of light.
Uh-huh.
Other times, I am not sure at all what you're saying.
Yes.
But it is extremely difficult for us to talk to one another, even about everyday affairs, much less about that which is transcendental.
Absolutely, yes.
If we are going to talk to one another, if we are going to explain to one another things that concern us, particularly when we want to talk about matters of general affairs, rather than where I happened to park yesterday. We need to somehow or other drag these ideas into images, sounds, paintings, if you will. They're making use of words and constructs and experiences which are shared one with another. This is an extremely difficult thing to do when you start getting into these philosophical issues.
Yeah.
You may recall when I talked about mathematics being real, the reasons I gave were essentially the first fact that I continually did mathematics, and in some sense, by continually doing mathematics, I had gone back and forth over the same landscape. I had satisfied myself that the furniture, for example, trigonometric identities, descriptions of projective planes, etc., all stayed the same. That there was something over which I could indeed stub a mental toe. So there was this familiarity on my part.
Yes.
The second reason I gave was that I discovered when I talked to other mathematicians, they had visited the same world.
Mm-hmm.
We had things that we could discuss one with another, and sometimes they would tell me, I have made this marvelous discovery, I've proved this theorem, and then they would take and conduct me into a room off to one side of my mathematical dining room that I had never noticed before.
Right. Yes.
So they had the means of taking me into this extension.
Yes.
Then, when I got to the end of my justification for saying I want to use the word real for mathematics, I noted that I had extended the word real to mathematics, and I said nothing further about what it applied to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my own tendency when I deal with these matters is to look, if you will, on the one hand, for incarnations of ideas into images, into incidents, into examples in the world which is common and shared by all of us. You will often hear the advice given to writers, show, don't tell.
Yeah.
This is because they're telling to you things like, don't say that this character was a lonely character. show us his or her tears.
That's right.
Okay.
Talk about loneliness, don't talk loneliness.
Yes. It's not, by the way, a rule which I always endorse, but in its proper place, it is useful.
Yeah.
Then beyond that, what I find is what one can sometimes do is not necessarily tell, but suggest. For example, in Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, he's talking about a really strange world in which magic works. So one of the ways that he does this is he mentions that magic turns out, when it manifests itself, to exhibit the color octarine. Now, what is octarine? Well, it turns out it's a color which is outside of the normal colors that human beings are acquainted with.
Mm-hmm.
But right away, what he is doing is he is suggesting something of the quality of that which is beyond normal reality. And he's doing it by appealing to something which is very concrete, namely color.
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. I understand exactly what you're saying.
Now, beyond this, I tend to follow Wittgenstein's advice, which goes something roughly like this, of that of which you can say nothing, say nothing.
Yes. Yes. I understand. I could not follow that advice. As a matter of fact, I propose that human beings typically of whatever you don't understand, don't think about it. That's the regular way to work as a human being. But some human beings just say no, I'm going to look into this. That's why science appears here and there. That's why mathematics appears here and there. That's why higher mathematics appears here and there. That's why classical physics appear, and then non-classical physics, quantum mechanics, and it gets weirder and weirder and more difficult to describe by the day. That is what I have undertaken. Of course, I'm not a physicist, I'm not a mathematician, but I think I understand enough about what they're talking about, that the conceptual level, not on the nitty-gritty of their language. I pick up a few words here and there, and I put a picture together along with other ideas, philosophy, psychology, physics, mathematics, blah, 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 blah. And I put a worldview together that refuses to not talk about what is unspeakable, which is the non-phenomenal aspect of reality, which interplays with the phenomenal aspect of reality. I'm able to see, I always say that instead of seeing things like the chair in the room and the geometry and the different things that we can say about them, instead of looking at things and the relationship between things and the dynamics between things, I see through them, as if I had an X-ray vision. And while I'm looking at things, I'm looking at the no thing, which is the background on which the thing is, the space-time continuum. So I see the things in it, and I see through them at the same time.
Luis, your reality is physical, and Mike's reality in the mathematical domain, whatever he's playing with has a set of rules, a logical starting point that creates that reality, and he can stub his mental toe in that landscape. So when he's there, that's a reality. So that suggests that there's multiple realities. So your reality is you've attempted to follow the logic and the modeling in physics and in newer physics to try to integrate it with perhaps with the mind, try to come up with a big theory of everything, big toe.
When you
to integrate
say,
it.
yeah, when you say that suggests there are multiple realities, I think that's a I would rephrase that to say that there is obviously one reality, because if there were two realities, we don't know which one is real. And if they're all real, then it's one reality with different aspects. So what I propose is that there is one reality and there is an infinity of ways or perspectives to look at that same reality. And each way, each perspective uses a different language,
So
different
you're
semantics, different
looking
measuring
at the
tools.
super
Perspective.
reality.
Super perspective
The
regarding
reality
one reality. Yeah.
encompasses all sub-realities, and the mathematical reality that Mike enters in, it's all mental. So it's not a physical reality, it's a mental reality. It's a formless
I don't see
reality.
a distinction. You see, in reality, you can see a circle, you can see a triangle, you can see a cylinder, you can see a sphere. Those are, you draw that in the same reality. Well, in the same one reality, you can draw pretty much anything. 11 dimensions, 1 dimension, infinite dimensions, I would say. So the mathematics is the drawing, just like physics is the drawing, or painting is the drawing, or music is the drawing. So we draw things within the same or out of the same one reality.
In physical reality, it's also mental. We're drawing approximations.
Yeah.
When we see the sun, we draw a circle.
Right.
We're perceiving and interpreting mathematically with geometric figures in our mind. So in the end, everything that we bring in is mental. There's nothing physical, but it's out there. We assume it's out there.
You see,
it could be a virtual reality, a simulation we're in.
This is the part that Mike missed before he came in. We were talking about that mental and physical rely on each other. There's no mental without physical. There's no physical without mental. It's just you cannot understand properly the dynamics if you take one out. So, and the same happens with nothing, with zero. You cannot properly understand reality if you don't put the zero in the middle of every one. It doesn't make any sense. So basically, everything is mental, yes, but everything is physical, yes, and everything is zero, yes. Yeah, my perspective is super encompassing, and I pick and choose different drawings or different words or different expressions or different languages in order to try to describe that which is undescribable, because it's infinite.
What do you think, Mike?
Well, I am sitting here wondering if I happen to be real, and I think maybe I need to go and get a mirror and look into it and
You
see
need
that
two.
I'm not there.
You need two. You need two mirrors. One in front, one in the back.
And the other for the back of the head.
In the back, yes. So that
Yes,
then
okay. So then I can
you
look into the
start
mirror
seeing
and see the back of my head.
the infinity of all your realities. So basically, you see the infinity. It's like, am I real this way or that? Is the second me real, or the third, or the fourth, or the one? Blah, 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 blah. So this exercise is a torus. Reality is a torus, and it goes through the hole and comes back and goes back again and back again and back again. On one side of the torus, it is not, and on the other side of the torus, it is.
Mike, what would you look like if you got inside a mirror that is a perfect sphere and you have a little candle inside with you? And how many mics would you see, since it's all bouncing back and forth? What would it look like?
Fat.
Maybe we could simulate it.
All right. Well, guys, this was
phenomenal.
This was a
non-phenomenal.
It was non-phenomenal.
It was both phenomenal and non-phenomenal at the same time. Being is going from 0 to 1 and 1 and 0 at no end. As a matter of fact, I see reality as, you know how they describe, what is it that they describe, that the point of no return, or the
vanishing point?
The vanishing point, I think, that where reality it converges into one point and then just goes out into the other. Just like a black hole condenses into itself and then jumps out and explodes into a white hole. So reality, which is everything and nothing at the same time, condenses, actualizes, becomes very dense and heavy. And then it becomes so heavy that it breaks itself, boop, and it explodes into a white hole. And you can apply that to the cosmos, the Big Bang and the Big Crunch. You can apply that to a mind that is put together through a cell and a whole bunch of a brain that and then boop, consciousness arises out of that confluence, that very heavy density of data, and then it explodes into a consciousness. So you see the yin yang, black, very dense, and light, consciousness, etc., etc. Everything is a torus. Reality is a big torus that keeps coming in and out of itself.
Mike, when you describe when you're in your mental math reality and you're talking with other mathematicians, are they agreeing on the same math world? Are they entering the same math world? So they're obeying the same rules of logic to create that math realm? Or
not always. I remember I was doing some research with a good friend of mine, and one morning I went to him excitedly and said and told him I had just proven that a certain function we were looking at was continuous, and he said, "Oh, but I have just given a proof that there's a discontinuous example of this." And it turned out we both were right.
Yes. Yes.
Because what we were doing was making slightly different assumptions,
perspectives,
about how the function was described. We were in slightly different universes, if you will.
Wow.
Or realities.
Yes, sub-realities of the reality. Yeah.
But, mathematicians, they are very much used to this idea that you come at things from different perspectives. And what you have when you're looking at the mathematics is not so much reality as a map.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a picture, which
mathematics
may or may
is
not be useful for a given situation.
It is very useful. Mathematics is very useful. As a matter of fact, mathematics looks at the whole of reality and measures it and describes it and makes out formulas that then help us practically use reality better, build better
don't think it
things,
looks at
faster
the whole
things.
of reality by any means.
So could
Well,
there be a mathematics created that will allow Luis Del Pino and others who are looking at all of reality and describe it with an equation that includes what's happening here, our qualia, our phenomenal experience. It includes physical mathematics, includes all the mathematics,
Yeah.
and integrate them into one.
That's what I'm doing.
Mathematics.
That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. But you don't have your PhD yet in this kind of science. I'm gonna mention E.O. Wilson one more time. I have it right there in my profile. He said a balanced perspective cannot be acquired by studying disciplines in pieces, but through the pursuit of the consilience among them. This to me was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard in scientific ways. What this is saying is that reality cannot understand itself in a balanced way if it doesn't use all the sciences, all the languages, all the perspectives available to itself. So what I'm doing is I'm using a little bit of math, a little bit of physics, a little bit of psychology, a little bit of philosophy, a little bit of nutrition, a little bit of physical therapy, a little bit of sociology, a little bit of economics, a little bit of common sense, hygiene, mental hygiene, physical hygiene.
Can you express it all in mathematics, or do you have
It is
to
much
study
more.
It?
It is much more complicated than mathematics itself.
Mike he'll come up with the equations that describe ultimate reality.
This type of science requires a mathematician to think like a philosopher, a psychiatrist, a dietitian, a physical therapist, a sociologist, a politician, etc., 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 etc. So it requires a mind to start using all human knowledge in order to understand itself, himself, herself, actually to understand that it is reality that's looking at itself through that consciousness.
You guys might find it interesting to read this old fantasy series by L. Sprague de Camp and Fletcher Pratt, which was could be called something like The Mathematics of Magic, in which you had this psychologist who managed to figure out a way to use symbolic logic, which was chanted, in order to shift from one reality to another.
To another.
Yes. And he and his friend did this. Unfortunately, they often wound up at the wrong destination.
In big trouble, yeah.
Yes. At one point, they were trying to get into, I think it was ancient Greece, and the main character wound up in the setting of the Norse sagas, which wouldn't have been too bad, except he got there just on the eve of Ragnarok, which was the destruction of the gods.
Again, you can see this. You can see that this is a way to describe the scientific endeavor of the human mind to understand reality. That is, reality understanding itself through all languages, all semantics of sciences. So my science is a universal science which uses all the other sciences to help reality discover itself.
You just need mathematical equations or a logic system to describe it. Maybe Mike can help you.
I try to say things and give pointers, but apparently people have to graduate to them. It's just like seeing a formula in mathematics. You have to break it down. You have to understand it. You have to be able to recreate it yourself and go, okay, this is what it is. This is what it says, and this, this makes sense to me. My language is ill understood because it's all over the place. I go from philosophy to mathematics to zero ones to string theory to cosmology, inflationary cosmology, or black holes, and people are saying, how can you mix all that in one conversation? Well, when you look at it, I'm talking about reality, so you have to use everything in there, including nutrition, psychiatry, feelings, emotions, social fairness, etc., 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 etc. It's just that I've spent 20 years developing this kind of perspective, and it's very difficult to jump in and go, oh yeah, I got this. No, because you've never thought from that super meta perspective. You're not consilient in a sense that you either think like a mathematician, or you think like a dietitian, or you think like a father, or you think like a mother, or you think like a neighbor, or you think like a citizen. And my thinking is just takes all those categories and just puts them all together. It's a meta thinking, meta perspective that I contend helps a mind be coherent with itself and the rest of the universe. You don't see yourself as alienated anymore. You are it thinking about itself with a very wide perspective. This is, it's a science, but it's a kind of a magic. It's magical science.
It has consilience, but now it needs comprehensivism.
When you talk about understanding mathematics, just imagine how much trouble people have understanding mathematics. And it's just one tiny little language that I use. And I don't use it completely. I just use concepts in mathematics, like asymptotes and, limit towards infinity, but, the function doesn't touch the asymptote, that's mathematics. That's mathematics. When I say that consciousness is a function in a spectrum, it's a function between 0 and infinity. It doesn't touch 0, because I know that 0 only exists for a very tiny fraction of a second. At the Planck scale, 0 does not stay 0. It becomes something other than 0. You can call it a 1, a very tiny, tiny, tiny 1, which is called a string. But in any case, I'm using mathematical terms to describe reality. In this sense, like a function from 0 to infinity, a limit from, it's like a 1 over x. I describe the consciousness as 1 over x, function of 1 over x, in the limit into between 0 and infinity.
What do you put into x? 0?
Any x. Here we go, Mike. What do you put into x? What is x when you say f x equals 1 over x, the limit from 0 to infinity? What do you put into x? Anything, any value.
Yes. Integrating it?
There is a context when you write that down. In that context, you specify which things it is permissible to plug into x.
Yes.
Generally, if you're doing ordinary calculus and physics, and you're working with the real number system, you're going to have in mind that it is not permissible, it is not an operation that makes any sense to set x equal to 0.
And yet,
It's undefined.
that's why I put a limit in there. I say, okay, it cannot be 0, but it can be very close to 0. And it cannot be infinite, but it can be close to infinite. So that's the, and I say, let's do the absolute value, because, you know, if you put negative values in there, it's just like, what? Is there negative knowledge?
In that case, you have to broaden your context and say, I'm going to let x approach 0, and you have to specify whether or not you're approaching from left or right.
Well, absolute value, I would say only from one side. I don't go into the negative side of it, because it's going to make people misunderstand that there's a negative reality. And there's only one reality, so it's better not to go to, because then we think, okay, well, if I go beyond 0, it's a negative, so it's another reality. No, there's only one reality, and that's why I have to put the absolute value. I don't want to confuse people too much.
But you've made the premise that's only one reality. But Mike just told us that there's a mathematical reality, and it's real for him.
But only for a few seconds.
Until you change your mind.
But you can come back to it, and it's still there. And it's distinct from our reality, isn't it? It can't be a subset of this reality, because mathematicians could keep making up new realities, new mathematical realities.
Of course.
If you...
That's so much fun.
Yes, we keep inventing. What if this reality is another mathematical reality, and that we've agreed to follow, to keep within the rules? If we don't, then we get zapped into the hell of that reality. I don't know what would happen. We become non-phenomenal if we disobey the rules of this reality, the mathematical rules. So maybe this could be thought of as a huge simulation that is based upon a set of mathematical rules. And out of that emptiness arises this reality.
Well, I expect many stories have been written using such ideas.
And we're there, and we don't even know it. We think it's real. But scientists are starting to show that it's not so real, that the reality we imagine doesn't match physically what's happening in our brain. So we're imagining that it's real, but it's not. But
in other words, we may have bad charts. We may have bad maps.
We're coming up with maps all the time. We're coming up that this is a mouse.
I wondered why my cat attacked mine.
And this is a cup. Yes, whatever we're looking at and labeling, we're labeling it for the purpose of its function. But that object doesn't know its own function. So we've made things up. We design things for its functionality, and we label all the time. So we're on a huge desktop in our virtual computer, and we have icons of things. So this mouse is an icon of mouse. What else? And this wallet is an icon wallet. And then I have a trash can, and it's an icon recycle bin or trash can. So we're like in a realer desktop, comparable to what we see on our computer in the desktop. Or you have Linux. What do they call the icons? The same thing. Object-oriented programming. We're objects, and we've created them, or others have created them for us, and we've found them useful. So we're full of icons, full of objects, and we're moving them around. We're awake. Yeah, this is, I guess, realer than, I don't know.
Sorry, guys.
So I guess this reality is realer. That's the problem. According to Buddha, this reality is not that real. That's what the meaning of emptiness means. Is that we've created all these things with the help of others, like this mouse. We find it useful. The trash can, we find it useful. We throw things in it, but it's icons, like on a desktop. We've created all these icons and we move them around in this realer reality, but still it's not real because we're creating things to
Mike,
find it useful.
Yes.
let me ask you a question. Do you have a forum where you talk to other mathematicians? I'm sure you do, but do you have are there Zoom meetings with mathematicians talking about maths, or maybe talking about other things, but because they're all mathematicians, they like to discuss things from, I mean, does that exist? Do you know of any?
Well,
there's a meetup.
There are lots of Zoom meetings amongst mathematicians for various topics. I don't happen to belong to one right at the moment.
Right.
I'm at this sort of meeting, and I'm at some writers' meetings, and that's about all I do right now.
Right.
Occasionally, there is another mathematician that I may communicate with, generally by email.
Mm-hmm.
So
does this type of conversation, transcendental or transcendent or abstract conversation, ever arise from mathematicians? Because you guys go to very abstract concepts. Do you ever kind of stub your toe on such ideas that I try to express or describe?
I would not expect to find these sorts of topics being discussed in a mathematical.
Right.
These guys instead would be somewhere just below the peak of Mount Everest in mathematical terms.
Right.
Chipping away with their picks and their axes, telling other people there's a trail here, there's a way up there, look out for that.
Yes. But the moment that you run out of dirt, mathematics goes like, right? The moment that you run out of dirt or rock to pick at, the mathematician goes, I'm not going there. This is not part of mathematics.
Well, I don't think we ever run out of dirt or rock.
There's a lot of it, but it's still dirt or rock.
You will occasionally see interesting mathematical result, which has some sort of philosophical resonance attached to it.
Yeah.
I think that John Conway and Barry Mazur, a few years back, I remember publishing a theorem in which they had quote unquote proved, and I never did work my way through the whole theorem, that if you took the some set of axioms in quantum mechanics and worked with them, it turned out that if physicists had free will, then so did electrons.
Yep, in a sense, yes. Yes, that makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. The thing is, the free will of a physicist is more free than that of a photon. In the spectrum between 0 and infinity, yeah, anything above 0 has free will in a sense.
But
as
they
will.
had a proof. They had a mathematical proof of what they claimed.
Yeah, I suspect that if they explained it to me, I would agree, I would understand, but the math to me would be Greek.
Mm-hmm.
But the meaning, the sense regarding that, what that formula says, makes sense to me. And you know, when you think about it, the formula of everything, the theory of everything, is a formula. You may have seen it yourself. You may have seen it yourself, and
Now,
it's
there are a few results floating around in mathematics which have a certain amount of this aura. You've heard of the Gödel theorems, I'm sure.
Gödel theorem was the one that the machine. It's about complex machines.
You can apply it to Turing machines.
Turing machines also. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but basically, what the Gödel theorem says is that if you are in a universe of discourse, and this has a very carefully defined meaning, or a formal system would be the more appropriate term, which is sufficiently complicated that you can use it to describe arithmetic, then you can always find statements which are true statements which cannot be proved.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. This
So,
in my description, I say reality cannot be completely described or proven. Why?
now, what
Because
I have noticed is that you have this result, and you have a result by Tarski also about truth. Both of these tend to suggest that if you use any finitistic technique to describe quote unquote reality,
that
you
which
will
is not.
always miss something.
There you
That
go.
in order to describe in a satisfactory fashion what is going on, you have to always step outside.
That's right.
Reality.
Or yourself. Yeah, the mind has to step outside itself in order to do. Yes. So I agree with that. I cannot use mathematics to talk about. Maybe I should talk to those mathematicians and go, hey guys, you are describing in mathematical language what I talk about, that reality is transcendent of itself. In the sense that because itself would be the phenomenal side, which is embedded into the non-phenomenal side. So it's like the Ouroboros, you know, that the dragon that bites its own tail. Where does it end? Where does it start? And so what they're doing, maybe I should talk to those, or maybe I should read about those guys. Are they still alive?
No.
No.
No, I'm afraid not.
Yeah. So not that they would talk to me, more than likely, but if I could
go down and talk to them at Casadega.
So that I would like to build a bridge of communication between the pure mathematical mind that has stubbed its toe into the infinity of and the self-transcendence, the autotelism of reality. The reality makes sense in and of itself, outside of itself. It's always bigger than it's the sense that it can make of itself. So it's an infinity. So there's no end to it. So these guys have put a mathematical formula that is saying what I'm saying, but in trivial language ways.
But wouldn't it be better to talk to a physicist that is modeling everything mathematically?
Yeah. Yes, actually, the mathematicians and physicists are two different languages, different perspectives of the same reality.
No, physicists deal with matter, energy, motion, but it uses mathematics. So both.
Yeah.
So physics is simply applied mathematics. Right?
I suspect that theoretical physicists talk to mathematicians and say, "Can you?"
No, they have to be mathematicians. Many physicists are mathematicians.
Of course, they start there, but then they go into outside of mathematics.
Except maybe Einstein needed help from a better mathematician.
But this is the same thing. So I suspect a physicist that has an intuition into the nature of things, of reality, requires the mathematician to go, all right, this is what I'm thinking. Can you put numbers to this? When I say numbers, I'm talking about formulas, systems, equations. Can you verbalize it or numeralize it? This is mathematics. So can you functionalize it through functions and numbers and descriptors and et cetera, et cetera. So it can be said in a scientific mathematical language. That's how they came up with I, the irrational number, to describe the behavior of a photon. The spin.
I came up in a very different fashion, but the thing that you're describing about physicists going to mathematicians, you can see this in Einstein's career when he moved from special relativity to general relativity, and he needed new mathematics.
Yes.
And he was advised, you need to learn tensor analysis. And that was the setting.
That was it.
Huh?
That was it. A new way, a new semantics, a new language within mathematics to describe an intuition regarding the nature of space-time and how space-time is not fixed and all that.
So that's what Luis needs to do. Learn tensor mathematics.
If I could,
geometric algebra.
If I could hire,
I can help you on that.
Yeah, if I could hire PhDs in each one of the sciences of, then I could. But it doesn't matter because you know what? Like you just said it yourself, the theory of everything, the formula, talks about everything, but it doesn't talk everything. That's the difference. So. To me, this is a whimsical, almost a nonsensical exercise of each individual consciousness, which I propose all consciousness looks at finding the same truth, the same, reality. It's reality looking at itself through each portal of consciousness. We are like little light bulbs, the communication portals, through which reality is looking at itself with a certain degree of clarity and understanding and perspectivism and scientism, etc., etc. So to me, this that I speak about has phenomenal practical applications in real life, which then revert into ataraxia, the cessation of turmoil in the mind, and have great applications for behavior for emotional stability, for reduction of impulsivity, masturbation, you know, like the mind, this should be like this, and it should be like that, and if only my father had been like this or that, or if only had done this or that. So this type of super perspectivism has practical applications that trickle down to the level of conversation, what we do in the morning, what we eat, how we live, how we interact with reality, with ourselves, and the rest of the people. This is a humanistic endeavor. It's scientific. It's very abstract and very complex, you would say, whimsical, because it looks at things from a different way. It's not normal. It's an abnormal exercise of the mind. It is atypical, and it is a consciousness looking and trying to understand with a very wide super perspectivism that has very, very important and pleasant practical applications in the day-to-day life.
People, I think I'm going to have to leave. I got some things I want to get to work on.
Like breakfast?
I'm in sick bay, so that's why I was not in a rush to leave today, because I don't have anything to do, because I've been given the day off because I've been sick and I don't have to do honeydews and stuff.
Oh, man.
But this was a beautiful, as usual, a beautiful Zoom session. Thank you very much, Mike, for giving me this mathematical perspective. You know, because it helps very much talking to a mathematician, trying to express my ideas in mathematical terms.
That's the voice.
So it's been a pleasure, you guys. Have a great weekend, and hopefully we'll see each other on next Saturday.
All right. You too. You guys take care.
All righty then. Thank you, Mike.
Mike, always a pleasure to have Mike Taylor, the mathematician.
All right, my friend. Another perfectly wasted couple hours, 2.5 hours.
No, but now you have a mission to recruit PhDs in all fields and bring them together to help you come up with your big toe. Theory.
Yeah. I'm going to stub my toe in the big toe.
There's this guy called Thomas Campbell who wrote 3 volumes. He calls it My Big Toe. Toe is theory of everything.
TOE, yeah.
He's on YouTube explaining it. He worked in NASA, and he worked in the Monroe Institute.
What's his name?
Thomas Campbell. And in the Monroe Institute, they were trying to work on remote viewing. I think the CIA was trying to recruit spies that could do remote viewing, so they could go with their mind somewhere and look and read or listen to what the enemy was doing. So they were training people to be able to do remote viewing. Thomas Campbell. So
let me see if I can.
Big toe. Did you find him?
I'm looking right now. I'm gonna do toe.
Thomas Campbell. My Big
Toe, a trilogy unifying philosophy, physics. So that sounds like me. We can discover physicist Thomas W. Campbell. Thomas W. Campbell. I need to talk to this guy. That's what I need to talk to.
Yes, he's been at this for years. In his older videos on YouTube, he's in a conference room, and and he's going through his all his theory, and it's a long series, maybe 30 videos he goes through, and start out with very scientific, because he's a NASA scientist, or he worked for NASA.
Yeah.
And he talks about about Einstein and everything. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to check him out. I thought that he's going to talk to me, but
Talks about virtual reality. Why should I care if this
Thomas W. Campbell. Unify science and philosophy, physics and method, purpose and meaning.
did you find something?
2003. Awakening, discovery, working, latest news.
Thomas Campbell, minister. Thomas Campbell, British poet.
Okay, so he wants to share the news. Let's see how I can try to help him.
Thomas Campbell. Right.
Please visit www. Kickstarter campaign.
Wiki, my big toe. There's a
mybigtoe.com.
My Big Toe is a trilogy books.
About video store that contact my books. Excuse me. Oh, there's a video here where he talks. I'm gonna look at that. Yeah, he does engagements and events and everything. He's trying to make a buck also, of course, live off of that, but who doesn't, right?
Oh, maybe it's not THOM, it's TOM, Tom Campbell. Yeah, he has a YouTube channel called Tom Campbell.
Support.
He's got white hair,
MBT.
white beard. And he talks about entropy. I think he talks about consciousness is flowing against entropy or something like that.
mbtvolunteers@gmail.com.
He talks about the double slit experiment.
Yep. All right, I'm going to send him an email. Okay, let's go with it. Compose. Ouch. Come on. To mbtvolunteers@gmail.com. Reality looking at itself. So he really do this, isn't it?
Maybe there's a playlist that goes
Hello,
to
Tom.
like
A friend
in Toronto
mentioned
made up of 9
you
videos with slides.
on. A friend mentioned you doing a Zoom during our Saturday.
Oh.
Saturday. No. Saturday, 7 a.m. A friend mentioned you during our Saturday, 7 a.m. at Eastern Standard Time. Zoom, friendly Zoom meeting. I would love to share, to have a conversation with you, as it appears that through our consciousness, reality seems to behold itself coherently. Kind regards, Louis. I'm ready to send the email. Okay.
You sent him an email?
I sent him an email, invited him to have a conversation.
All right. So what did we learn today?
Boy.
That Mike Taylor, he can get into an alternate reality that is made up of mathematical particles,
Objects,
and it has its own set
concepts.
of rules, and he can mentally get in there, and it's very real because he can run into things and it can't go any further. He can stub his mathematical toe in there. So, and it's all mental. So is that reality real? Is that reality a subset of this reality, or is it distinct, separate? Because mathematicians can come up with new realities, new algebras, new logic systems that are separate from all others, that work totally different from this reality. So why can't those be considered distinct alternate realities?
I say there's one reality that you can look at from an infinity of different perspectives. And those perspectives you call a different reality or a new reality. But it's a different way of looking at the same one reality.
No, but in the mathematical reality that Mike enters in, it's not looking at this reality. It's another reality because
I know.
it's isolated.
Yeah, I know.
It's not trying to look at this reality.
But
So
like we were talking earlier today that there is no distinction, no separation, no essential cut between this sub-reality and that sub-reality, that they are just aspects of the same one big reality. That's my contention.
But the reality, the mathematical reality that Mike supposedly goes into, does not try to map into this reality. It's so strange. It can be with its own set of rules, its own logic. It creates another reality that is nowhere attempts to be a perspective on this reality.
I know.
It's a totally alternate reality. So you can't say that it's a subset just because it's in our mind. And
is German a reality versus English, for example? Are not the Germans talking about the same reality but with different words? So what you're saying is that Mike's
not talking about this reality.
I know.
Mike is saying that it's its own reality. So you can't say that reality is part
They're
of
missing
this
the big
reality.
picture. They're missing the big picture. Right. It's just like missing the big picture when you're at the only reality is German, or the only reality is Chinese. Those two languages don't talk to each other, so they think they're talking about two different realities, but they're talking about the same reality. You call it a car, and you call them a Volkswagen. You see?
So are you saying that a mathematical system that's all mental is trying to describe this reality? No, it's in there doing its own thing.
It's trying to describe the one reality from its own perspective. No, it doesn't talk to the other reality because it's a different language. But what I'm saying is that this reality.
Mike is saying that the reality that the mathematicians have come up with, that they may be useful, may not, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's trying to match this reality. It's so different from this reality when he goes in there.
Yeah. So what I say is that
it's made up. It's made up. It's created by mind.
I know, and they're wrong. It's wrong. That's why they just see this sub-reality as reality. It's only a sub-reality. That's the appropriate scientific.
Maybe Maybe it's happening in this, and maybe it's happening in this super reality that uses the mind.
Yeah. But no matter how super reality is, if it sees itself through a sub-reality that thinks that it is a super reality, then it doesn't see itself properly. What else have we learned today? What we've learned today is that I need to get going because it's almost 10 o'clock and I'm sure that something is going to have to be done no matter how sick I feel. This was a phenomenal Zoom session. And I hope you record it all and that you put it on our channel as soon as possible.
We've learned that we've got much to learn about the mind and the super reality. And that we have to come up with a mathematical way of expressing it. Perhaps. To make it more useful. Because if it can be described mathematically, then it could be programmed into a computer and results would come out faster. And you could cure cancer.
Everything. And stupidity. If you can cure stupidity, you're doing good. Stupidity kills more people than any cancer or any virus. Think about it.
I'll think about it. Become stupid. I'll think about it.
All right, my friend. Listen, I'm going to let you go. It was wonderful. Thank you for making these meetings happen.
Thank you.
You're a hero.
For presenting your big toe.
It's a good thing I washed my feet before doing that. Take care. Bye.
Bye. What do you think? Did this help anybody out there? Did it help me? I don't know. We'll see. Well, I get a mess of a room to clean up. Maybe that's what I should be doing. Well, I hope somebody watches this and enjoys it. Too bad that Rami couldn't hang around, or, well, it was wonderful to have Mike Taylor, the mathematician, come around and question Luis Del Pino's big toe theory of everything. And so what's coming up? So this is March 6th. What's coming up? A lot of things happen. So this is Saturday morning, and it's almost 10. I could go, get there too late to do a meditation in the room. I could go to yoga. I could call Maria Eugenia and see if she's having yoga this morning. But I've got so much to do in this room. Well, I've fixed some computers up to the point that it's going through Windows updates. They got Windows 10 and Office 2019 with the essential tools like Word, Excel. I didn't put Access. Word, Excel. I did put OneNote. Word, Excel. What other ones? PowerPoint. that's pretty much it. I could have put more stuff on them, but that's, oh, and Outlook to get things done for one user with their email. So, but I got 2 or 3 more computers to fix. Well, my iPad. I'm gonna see if I can change the screen. It's cracked. Never done that before. But it's good to try things that one has never done before. And hopefully not fail. But if one fails, that's really not a failure. All right. So yeah, I hope someone out there enjoyed this Wake Up and Think Clearly episode of March 6th, Saturday morning. It was mostly Luis Del Pino, and Mike Taylor was here for as much as he could, and then he left first, and eventually Luis had to leave. So we'll try again next Saturday. If you think of something to make this a better show on YouTube, then send me a note. You can put it on maybe I could put my email on here. How can you reach me? You can reach me on Meetup. This is on Meetup. Maybe I could write in the chat room. There you can read it. Let's see. Oh shoot. Let's see. Meetup. So so this is this Zoom meeting is described at. Can you read this in the chat? If you open up the chat, it says meetup.com central-florida-philosophy. So https://www.meetup.com/central-florida-philosophy. That's one place where you can find it. Also, I announced it in the Buddhism for Happiness meetup, Americanayana Buddhism. I don't do much promoting, but here's my opportunity to promote a little bit. And so you can leave if you want to ignore this. But here's the links. I wonder if they will work for you. If you see the chat on the right. I don't know. It's meetup.com /Buddhism the number 4 happiness -Americanayana. It's kind of long. Maybe I'll cut it. And you can find this on the YouTube channel. Let's see if I can go to it now. Let's see. I can type in tiny URL. Wake up hyphen think clearly hyphen YouTube. See if that goes to it. Yeah, it does. Oh. So wake up and think clearly is found here. So that's a long